Well, it's nine. Good morning. It's 9:01, so we'll get this kicked off. We know everybody's time is valuable. We appreciate you being here. My name is Beth Easterday, and I am president of ACEC Ohio. I have with me today for this session Kevin Futrick, who is a partner in Government Advantage Group, as well as RJ Mancini, who is vice president of Government Advantage Group. Both will be joining us at our chapter fly-ins that start this Friday in Northwest Ohio. Let me just give you an overview of why the chapter fly-ins are important and why we started them 3 years ago. This will be our third session of meeting at the chapter level with our local state legislators. And the reason this happened was because we had a strategic plan that basically oh, was looking at grassroots advocacy. And our chapters really are the best way to reach out to local legislators and tell them what's going on in their area and to share with them as a business in their area what your concerns are. And so 3 years ago, we kicked this off. We have them on a Monday or a Friday because the legislators normally are in session Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here in Columbus. So to reach them in their districts, we focus on a Monday or Friday event. We do it at the lunchtime. We invite our local state legislators to join us. And then it's a very casual networking atmosphere. So no pressure on you or the legislators. It's more of, hey, here I am. Let's get to know the issues. And so we're really pleased that Kevin and RJ can be here today to kind of go through the basics of what to do when you get to that chapter fly-in and the type of issues you can bring forward to your legislators. So I'll turn it over to Kevin and RJ.
Great. Thank you, Beth. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing RJ and I to talk with you about the dark underbelly of lobbying. There's a caricature I've kept since I started lobbying 40 some years ago. That's a picture of an overweight, balding man with a cigar in his mouth and a three-piece suit and a stovepipe hat and cash kind of hanging out of his pockets. And I think to a lot of folks, that is the impression of what a lobbyist is. Truth be told, this is not some ominous profession that, truth be told, lobbying is something that is actually provided for and protected under the First Amendment of the Ohio and the U.S. Constitution that gives every citizen the right to address any grievances they have to their legislative bodies. So this is not something that should be looked upon advocacy as being negative. In fact, I think a lot of you would be surprised if you were to look. We all have to register with the Joint Legislative Ethics Committee on behalf of our clients. Any possible group you can imagine, I guarantee you, has somebody registered to advocate for them. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, manufacturers, business organization, ACEC Ohio, schools, libraries, YMCA, yeah. So I mean, it's not an unethical profession. It is not an unethical practice. In fact, if anything, it is more important for legislators to hear from you than not. And the reason for that is, this goes back to the Reagan era. When Reagan started passing a lot of the federal policy and the federal funding down to the states. The states now had to grapple with, well, we now need to implement policies that impact the business of engineering. And, I guarantee you I think there's one engineer out of 132 legislators. So what they are trying to do, obviously, is learn. Legislators also in a 2-year legislative cycle. We are in the second year of that cycle right now. They deal with 1,100 pieces of legislation. There is no way they can be subject matter experts on all of those. So the work that RJ and I and Beth do for you here on the Capitol is but one part of that advocacy plan. I like to tell clients all the time, legislators would rather hear from you They would rather hear from you as residents of the district, you as business owners or employees of businesses in the district, you who are making impacts in the districts and the projects that you're doing, than they would just from us. So to Beth's point, when we first started talking about doing these fly-ins, I think it started, Beth, as when Don Mader was still there. It was people were like, ACEC Ohio members were afraid of their legislators. They had this opinion that, well, my goodness, their goodness, they're an elected official. RJ and I like to tell clients all the time, we guarantee you that they are more afraid of you than you should be of them, because you are their voters, because you are the people that are making a difference in their district, because you are the subject matter experts in their districts. So for the fly-in here, I think this is, if you don't know your legislators, this is a good first opportunity to introduce yourself to them, tell them who you are, where you live, the companies that you work for. I think even more important is, legislators like something tangible. So if you can say, hey, that bridge project or that roundabout or that road project, that water sewer project in whatever community, we were responsible for planning that. That gives them a tangible that they can then know, oh, now I know the kind of work that you do. I think these fly-ins are also an opportunity again for that initial contact. I think the purpose of these is, if you don't have that relationship, develop that relationship, but follow through on that relationship is equally as important. So we do, have ACEC Ohio does have issues throughout the 2-year General Assembly. We're always looking at QBS to make sure that there's no attack on QBS. Again, talk with members about the importance of QBS and why it is important to engineers. We are obviously right now in the middle, for those of you who do transportation, we're in the middle of the transportation budget. But I think, Director Borton went on record as saying, you know what, the state is entering that fiscal cliff again, where the amount of revenues needed are far short of what, the amount of revenues being generated are far short of the needs that we have, in Ohio with respect to not only capital, but also maintenance projects. So again, I think this meeting is the first opportunity to have that introduction, to have that opportunity to talk. Legislate, it's going to be an odd year this year for the legislature. They're coming back in February. They'll be here February, March, maybe part of April. They will recess for the May primary, and then they will be back for a short period of time before recessing in June. For all intents and purposes, June until after the November election, they're going to be in their districts. So plenty of opportunities for you to reach out to them, whether it's coffee, whether it's lunch, whether you run into them at a grocery store, be kind to them because they're shopping. County fairs are a great opportunity to see your legislators, parades. But again, the purpose here is for them to meet you and to get, start establishing that relationship. Because the other side of this equation is, as I said, legislators deal with thousands of issues. Again, RJ and I and Beth are out there advocating for those issues when they occur. But if they know that Andrew Walton is in a district and he's an engineer and he's a constituent of mine, they will pick up the phone and call you to say, what does this bill mean? Help me understand how this bill impacts your industry. That's the other thing that's important about these meetings is we want to not only establish that relationship, but we want it to be a two-way relationship. You talking to them when you have something to say, but them picking up the phone and calling you when they have a question to ask about how something's going to impact. So, RJ, anything to add? Or Beth, did I miss anything that you want us to cover?
I don't think you missed anything.
Okay.
Real quickly, Haley, could you pull up our discussion topics? So we have prepared something for you. We won't send you in blind. This will be coming to your inbox, and some of it talks about what Kevin has already mentioned. Because it is an odd year, We may or may not have a capital bill. I did not put that on there. Ask them what they're doing. What are the priorities of the General Assembly coming up? And raise that concern about transportation funding if that is something that impacts your firm. That is something that we need legislators to know now, as we won't deal with the transportation budget until the winter of 2027. And it's going to be an uphill battle, I'll be frank with you. We're going to have a new governor, and we don't know what this new governor will feel about funding for transportation issues. And then any other business issues that you or your firm might have experienced are always very important for the legislators to hear. As I always tell our rising leader graduates in their first orientation, we want to be the resource for our legislators. We want them to call us. Not only do we want to bug them when we have issues, but if they have questions, we want to be the resource. We want them to know that they can turn to ACC Ohio members because we have the answers for them or can help them walk through the issue. So, Haley, you can take that down and we'll open it up for questions.
Beth, can I just add one other thing because you mentioned
Sure.
the capital bill? So normally in odd numbered years, we do the operating budget, the transportation budget, the industrial commission budget, workers' comp budget. In the even numbered years, they normally do a capital appropriations bill. The bulk of the capital appropriations bill is brick and mortar for, universities and things like that, state agencies and departments. But there is also something in there called the community projects. It's been anywhere from 120 to 150 million. The reason we may not see the capital appropriations bill this year is I'm sure you've read in the newspapers about property taxes. And, property tax increases has been at the forefront of the General Assembly's conversations this entire year. When they come back, they did the first tranche of 5 bills in December. When they come back in February, they're going to be doing additional property tax reform. The reason for that is there's a group up in Northeast Ohio who has gotten approval of language to put on the November 26th ballot, potentially, a constitutional amendment to repeal property taxes in Ohio. That is a huge issue because property taxes doesn't generate a dime for the state, but it generates $24 billion for local governments, for townships, police, fire, EMS, schools, libraries, parks, health districts, you name it. So that is a concern, and that is one of the reasons that there may not be a capital bill is the chairs of the House and Senate Finance Committee are like, well, if we, the state, have to backfill this money for local governments, we're not going to be able to do a capital appropriations bill. So you may hear about that, but again, you can talk about projects you've done, whether it's bike paths or safety improvements or parks. I mean, the legislators need to hear this information about the work that you have done. Finally, do not be alarmed if you meet them another time and they don't remember anything you said to them at the fly-in. But, again, they'll be talking to a lot of people. And that's why even in what RJ and I do, it is repetitive. It is constantly talking with legislators. The other thing that I didn't mention is the reason you talk to them all the time is you don't want to be viewed as somebody that only calls them when you need something. You want, to Beth's point, to be a resource. You want to try and develop a relationship with them. There's nothing political about this, that you have to support them and support all of their issues. You just want to be able to have that contact to be a resource for them on issues affecting consulting engineering community.
Fantastic. Does anybody have a question? Feel free to come off mute. And all of you will be at our chapter fly-in, depending on what region. Is that correct? We're pleased to see so many on this call. Fantastic. Again, our first one is this Friday in Northwest Ohio. And Haley, do you want to tell them who's coming?
Sure. So we have Representative Michelle Grimm, Representative Haraz Gambari, and then the last one is, sorry, I'm just stopping to look it up here. Representative Elgin Rogers.
So a great turnout for Northwest Ohio. And if you haven't registered, please do. We'd love to see you up in the Toledo area. We're holding it at the Toledo Club. In the meantime, we have recorded this. So if you need a refresher prior to your chapter fly-in, feel free to watch this again. And the talking points will be coming to your inbox also.
And Beth, just as a follow-up, if
Sure.
anybody, before or after these, fly-ins has any questions about any of the legislative issues, feel free to give RJ or me a call. We're happy to talk to folks.
We'll add your contact information. How about that?
That works.
Even better.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here this morning. And again, if you have any questions prior to the fly-in, feel free to reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you on one of these Mondays or Fridays here in January. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you.